Jordan Frank. I am joined, as always, by Ben Raza. Ben, how you doing today?
I'm all right. A tradition on this show. I'm not gonna lie. I'm a little wound up sweating the golf, but I can multitask. We had some preseason NFL. Obviously, we got a lot going on, but it also is a golf sweat for sure.
That's why we set this show for this exact time, just to get
Smart.
your reactions. I can usually tell who's doing what at any given time, just how you're reacting during the show.
That's what we do. It's subliminal messaging over here. So we're gonna try to hang in and see what's what. But yeah, Liberty National, a lot going on. Obviously, Tiger decided to take today off. He withdrew, and a lot of guys on the course. That's for sure.
Who doesn't want to enjoy a Friday off, like Tiger today? Seems like a good strategy.
Yeah, seriously, he's probably ahead of the game. He's probably, we were talking before the show what he's doing right now. It's certainly a good things ahead.
That's for sure. That's for sure. Before we get too deep into the weeds here, I want to give a shout out to our presenting sponsor, which is EV Analytics. If you're looking for betting models, real time odds, betting stats, and more, make sure to check out evanalytics.com. I also wanted to give a quick shout out to Ben and some of our other great guys over at Awesemo for the season long fantasy content that we're pumping out. Now is draft season. We have a ton of team by team breakdowns, skill position breakdowns, you name it, you can find it at awesemo.com. Obviously, like you mentioned, preseason. Yeah, we had the Hall of Fame game last week, but it really started last night. I don't want to do the overreaction theater about NFL preseason, especially week one, where nobody's really playing any significant time, and a lot of the studs don't even play. But did anything, stick out to you from last night? You want to talk about some of your New York teams? We had a little bit of buzz coming from there.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I was at dinner and just the eruptions of Daniel Jones shockwaves could be felt all across New York. I guess obviously it means literally nothing. The biggest thing that happened last night is Kike Kute hurt an ankle.
Yeah.
Doesn't seem to be serious, but at the same time, he's someone that really has a role on the Texans. So, we saw Kyler Murray a little. We saw some rookies with some promise. Your boy on the Bears, Montgomery, found the end zone, looked pretty crisp. But all in all, I think it's what is there really to draw? This has no correlation to anything.
Yeah, I don't want to waste too much time on it, but like you said, I think you hit on the real news from the last day is really for sure Kiki QT and what that injury is going to look like. Duke Johnson trade, talking about Houston again, that could be potentially significant, for fantasy. Jacoby Myers is somebody that I've been kind of looking at on the Patriots, undrafted rookie. He had a really good game yesterday. Again, doesn't mean anything, but just someone to keep an eye on. He's like a crazy flyer if you're doing any kind of drafting now, but just keep an eye on that as the preseason goes on. But yeah, nothing really else that obviously the Daniel Jones eruption even got all the way to the West Coast. Everyone was talking about it. And Eli, of course, went 3-and-out to start the game.
It's amazing. I mean, so much is people are so thirsty for football that it's
Yeah.
it's amazing how much is drawn from this. Couple more games tonight, couple on Saturday, and then slowly but surely, like you said, this is also week one. In week three, when it's a borderline dress rehearsal, I think that's a decent indication. It's still a long season though, and obviously a lot of these guys aren't even going to be on these teams.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I don't want to spend too much time on it. Obviously, we talked about golf off the top here. It's the FedEx Cup playoffs this week at the Northern Trust. Wanted to get your just kind of quick reactions. I guess number one reaction from yesterday's round, a lot of low numbers out there. Troy Merritt was the leader going into this morning. He shot 62 yesterday. Seems like the course is playing pretty soft, and obviously we see this morning with our boy Jason Roslin's guy, Jordan Spieth, just crushing it right now. 6 under today, taking the lead.
Yeah, it's obviously they're getting soft conditions. We'll be interested to see what the split looks like wave wise if the afternoon plays a little harder like it did yesterday, or if those guys who played in the morning yesterday actually get a full split. Scores are out there. I mean, we've seen guys like Rose climb the leaderboard, Spieth, who He can climb the leaderboard. It's just a matter of can he avoid the triples that seem to plague him at some point over the 72 holes. And then there's chasers, guys that had a really good round that haven't teed off, guys like Rory, guys like Rahm, DJ. They're falling down the leaderboard a little bit, but of course they are in the thick of it. So a ton of big names. First event, really only Brooks had a pretty slow start, but everyone else, this is a stacked leaderboard.
Yeah, it really is. Have you looked at any outrights? Is there anybody who kind of is catching your eye who maybe is part of that afternoon group, or even somebody who's already put a low number? Obviously, Spieth is 10-1 to win it all right now as the leader, which just kind of shows you his weekend track record of the last couple of years now.
Yeah, not a lot of faith out there in the markets for him. I guess obviously a lot of guys, big names played in this wave, and really Rory, Rahm, and DJ, they're basically the top odds just because of who they are and where they sit without teeing off. I'd lean, if you're looking for kind of that mid-tier, someone like Decky, who's on the course playing very well. Him and Bryson, who are two guys, I think everyone, especially Bryson, you know the win equity's there. He hasn't been able to really sustain it, but he's the defending champ. I know, obviously, a different course, but he's kind of just lurking. He should get to the weekend in pretty solid position. You go out tomorrow and fire, a mid 60s, and he's in one of the final groups come Sunday.
Yeah, with the course playing as soft as it is, it seems like it's more ripe for the taking than maybe traditionally this tournament or these playoff courses. Obviously, DJ is positioned really well. Justin Rose, who I feel like I've been on for like the last 3 or 4 weeks, I think you have also.
For sure. He's, Rose just kind of does this thing, and we'll see. It's going to firm up, obviously, as it dries out. We've gotten some rain, and if there's any wind, not that they're calling for any brutal conditions, but I think the scoring, the cut, it looks like, -1, -2 range right now. And that's going to leave, there's going to be a lot of guys. I don't know. I'm interested to see who's winning and at what number after today. I'd say maybe -12-ish probably feels where it falls, but that's going to give middling guys a lot of opportunity.
Yeah, it really seems like there could be some opportunity into the weekend. Even somebody like Finau, who I've been looking at lately, like he had a great round yesterday, shot 6 under. Like he's in the mix. Just needs to kind of shoot something similar, or even just get to the weekend at like 8, 9 under, and then obviously he's in the mix. And I like Bryson too. Obviously, he won this last year. Seems like there's a lot of potential value down there. In kind of that middle 6, 5, 4 under tier who haven't teed off yet.
Yeah, we talk about this often on this show. It's really a matter of, if you think that the course is going to play similar to what they're doing right now, I think there's some value in targeting guys that haven't played the 18 holes yet. If you think the afternoon may firm up a bit, well, you might want to bank on something like Rose, like Decky, who they're about to finish, and they're not going to be playing anymore today. They could actually move up even further or solidify their position just by a little tougher conditions.
Yeah, I think that's something that we've talked about many times, and I think that's the key to betting golf futures is kind of understanding that difference and in which tournaments you should be targeting the morning versus afternoon, and certainly how the weather plays into that is really important.
No doubt, but yeah, it's a good event. Obviously, this is the last one with a cut in the FedEx Cup. They whittle it down to 70. We'll see what happens. I have a couple guys on that number. I really pray they can get through and we can have an exciting weekend.
Nice. Well, we'll be keeping a close eye on your reactions for the next 30, 40 minutes here and see how it's going.
Absolutely.
Also starting today, I know Josh, our producer here, is a big fan of EPL. Are you betting EPL at all, or are you getting into it this year?
Not really. It's funny. I do enjoy soccer, but I really prefer international where there's countries. I just have a tough time with the clubs. Maybe in a tournament in the UEFA and things like that, I look, but on EPL, we have obviously some awesome content on the site, really bolstering the soccer, which I will look to if I do want to take a couple flyers on some games, but I haven't really dug in too much.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat, and you bring up a good point that we're going to have a ton of content on the site moving forward for EPL and all soccer arena projections and ownership and everything's going to be on there. So I know the platforms, FanDuel, DraftKings are certainly investing in soccer and expanding their offering. So DFS perspective, it's going to grow for sure. Betting wise, it's already huge and something that we're going to tackle as we move forward.
Yeah, it's a great sport to bet. But you got to do that research or rely on people who kind of know what they're talking about. That would not be me.
Yeah. Me neither. That's an easy fade for us there. Yep. Tennis, we've been talking a little bit over the last week. The men are Rogers Cup, men and women playing in Canada, Montreal and Toronto, respectively. Have you looked at any of the matches today? We got 3 on the men's side with 3 top 10 matchups. Like a really great day of tennis today. I'm looking forward to. Obviously, you have Rafa on top, who is just kind of the lead dog here, and obviously the huge favorite to win the tournament. Have you looked at any of these matches today? Anything sticking out to you?
So yeah, the tennis, I will say yesterday, and I know you know this, we talked a little, I watched an absolute, I don't want to say a classic, but what a match, FAA against the young Russian, and it was back and forth. Both guys, unbelievable talent. I'm, a little erratic, not going to lie. It was a up and down match for both of them, but man, there's some really good tennis being played. And even today, you mentioned, obviously, Nadal in action, TM is in action. That's the match I wanted to talk about. Have you looked at that at all?
Yeah, it's a very interesting one to me. I like Thiem a lot. It is a tough matchup for him against Medvedev. He's beat him the last 2 times though, but the last time they played was on clay. So I don't know how much we can draw from that because Thiem is so good on clay.
He is obviously at the French. He seems like, not that anyone's really a threat to Rafa, but if someone was, it kind of seems like him. I actually like Medvedev in the match, sitting around minus 150, which seems a little much, especially when you look at the seeding. But he's basically been he's been demolishing opponents in this. TM a little sluggish, and I actually think that even though the head-to-heads have gone the other way, I think Medvedev finds a way to advance today.
I actually would agree with you, and I think you bring something up there kind of in passing, is that a lot of people just look at the seeding and assume that the seeding should dictate kind of what the market's going to look like and who the better player is. And that is certainly not always the case. I mean, majority of the time, yeah, the higher seeded player is probably better and is going to be the favorite. But you see that here, that's not the case. In tennis, that happens a lot. And it's really important to obviously look at where these players are ranked, but kind of look at their recent form. I think in tennis that's even more important than a lot of other sports. And like you said, Medvedev has been playing incredible tennis. Thiem has been struggling. He keeps losing matches that he should not be losing. So I think clearly you're seeing the betting market favor Medvedev here.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, that stood out to me, the line. But the more I dug, the more I realized that, you know what, I still think there's some value there. So I did look to that. Zverev, obviously, that's a really good matchup. He faces Kachanov, whatever his name is, the Russian who beat FA last week.
The big Russian.
Talented players. I want to continue to roll with this young Russian, but I have a feeling probably Zverev moves on. I'm not touching the match, though, personally.
Yeah, I'm probably not touching it either. I've seen some people who are on Zverev. I think in Slack, a bunch of guys like Zverev today. So I would kind of lean Zverev as well. But I think Kachanov can certainly win this match. He's playing really well right now. Obviously, you said he just beat FAA. He beat Stan before that. His form is really good. But it's my guess is going to be 3-setter. It's going to be very close, and it's going to be a tough match. But I know the data definitely leans Zverev. Like on Tennis Abstract, they're showing him as a 60% favorite, which kind of does not align with the odds. They're basically a pick 'em. They're both like minus 105-ish, depending where you're looking. So just in that sense, I think I would lean Zverev.
Yeah, it's a toss-up match, but that's I'll probably try to catch some of it. Maybe if I see something, I take a position live. But it's good tennis, obviously, prepping for the U.S. Open, which is coming up pretty soon.
Yeah. One last point is Captain Obvious. Obviously, Rafa is a gigantic favorite against Fognini. But if you dig in a little bit, Rafa, we talked about it when it happened, lost on clay in Monte Carlo. Rafa losing on clay should alert you that that's just such an anomaly for him to actually lose on clay, and he lost to Fabio. So I know one person who remembers that loss is Rafa, and he is going to destroy him today. I'm pretty confident in that. If you can somehow, I mean, I would not, I don't want to lay minus 850, obviously. So if you can get him in a parlay with a couple of guys, kind of get that price significantly lower, yeah, then I would recommend it. But otherwise, no, I'm not laying that kind of juice.
Do you ever, in a situation like that, lay the game? So, Rafa like -5 games.
Yeah, I think this is a perfect opportunity to do that. I don't do it as much in tennis,
Yeah, I don't either.
but a lot of it, when you can dig into the serve data and return data, then that's where I would do it. If somebody is incredibly strong return or a weaker server, because you're just going to need more breaks, obviously, to cover that win spread.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, that's the name of the game with stuff like that. But yeah, I'm sure Rafa will find a way through in relatively easy fashion. It's some good matches though. If you have time, check them out. I really enjoyed watching it. Montreal, good atmosphere too. I was stunned. Stadium
Yeah,
was packed.
yeah, it is. Yeah, there's a lot of Canadian, like pretty good Canadian players. You mentioned FAA, obviously Ronic, Shapovalov. There's a lot of good young Canadian players, and I think that helps with the atmosphere. And it really is a fun tournament. And they're back in North America, which helps, or just for timing. So it's just much easier to watch it.
Absolutely.
The main topic that we wanted to get into today was, last week we went through some of the NFL. Well, I think we went through all of the NFL divisions actually, and talked about some of our favorite teams to win divisions and looking at the pricing and the importance of shopping around those numbers. Today, we wanted to pick. Each one of us is going to pick 2 team totals that we like and we want to buy, and 2 team totals that we're going under and selling or fading that team. We each have 2. Do you want to start with one of your over picks, team that you're on?
Sure. I'll start with a team that I consider certainly on the short list for Super Bowl contenders, AFC. And I talked about them a little last week, but I'm going to expand on it. It's my Chargers. I'm saying my Chargers if I have any connection to right in your neighborhood. They are sitting basically 9.5. It's shaded to the over on most sites that I see, but I think they find a way certainly to hit double digits. This is a team, obviously, Melvin Gordon situation. That's step one. Can they get that resolved? If they don't, I still think they'll be, they have Eckler, they have Jackson. It's going to be a drop off, but it's not a death sentence. It's not like the Cowboys if Zeke sits, where I think that changes the entire team. And then we look at a team here, Ingram and Bosa with the ends, Rivers at quarterback. That's as stable as you're going to get. Derwin James mans the secondary. And then the division. I know the Chiefs are high powered, but you got the Raiders and the Broncos. That's 4 games right there. And, I just look at the way they should be able to generate pressure with that defense. They have as much experience as you want from a QB. They have Keenan Allen. They've got plenty of weapons. Hunter Henry returning healthy. It just seems to me that a team is going to really be vying with the Chiefs. And if you want to win that division, you're going to have to go over certainly 9.5. So I expect them in double digits this year.
That's one that they weren't on my list of my favorite 2, but definitely one that I'm definitely have already wagered the over on. And it's a team that a lot of people are bullish on, and it seems to happen kind of every year at this time that nobody's talking about the Chargers. Well, everybody seems to like them again this year. I agree with everything you said. The division is weak outside of KC, obviously, and if you can get 3 or 4 wins right there, that's a huge advantage. I think the running back situation, yeah, it's a problem, but I don't think it's a huge problem. Like you said, Eckler, Justin Jackson will be fine. I think they can more than adequately fill the void of Melvin Gordon. There's still a chance Melvin Gordon, they sign him, he shows up, he plays, and he's Melvin Gordon of, the first half of last season or 2 years ago, and he's a stud, and you can see that offense really explode. I really like Mike Williams. I don't think a lot of people are talking about him, just how much of a weapon he is for Phillip Rivers, and he hasn't been super healthy yet. Just if he can stay on the field with Keenan Allen, you get Hunter Henry back, like you said. I agree with you. I think it's a strong over.
Yeah, I mean, again, Bosa was hurt for 9 games last year. Him coming back, when you have two ends, it's just so, because, obviously in the NFL and even in college, if you want to stop one of them, you chip with a tight end, you roll extra cover. But if you have two of them, it's pretty hard to allocate. I mean, what are you really going to do? That really opens up the rest of the team. And Derwin James was a guy, not that I have a strong allegiance. I guess it would be the Jets, and they weren't drafting him. But I was stunned that he fell in the draft coming out of Florida State. Just an electric player. And we've seen that immediately. He's going to be an impact player. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah. What I want to ask you kind of your general philosophy. Are you one that, a lot of people don't like to bet team totals just because you're tying up capital for such a long period of time? Are you one who hesitates with these bets, or if you just see the value and you see something you believe in, you don't have any issue tying up the capital?
I think like anything, you got to split the difference. Like I don't look to do this. There's a lot of team totals and things of that nature that I look and I say, I like that bet. Usually that doesn't get it done for me though. I rarely fire on that. If I see one where I'm like, okay, I, I've really done my due diligence. I see the value. I have no problem locking up some capital. Obviously, you want to be responsible. You don't want to lock it up. Even if you're right, if you lock up too much if you have a bankroll, like that's just stupid.
Yeah.
But allocating even in a long-term play like that, if it's a plus EV spot, I'm more than willing to pounce. Especially college, there was a couple that caught my eye and I hit them immediately, and I won't have that money even if I win for a while, but I think it's worth it.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. There's always a trade-off, and if you can uncover the value, and if you have a good position, I'm fine tying that up. It all goes to bankroll management. It's not something we've hit on a lot, but obviously it's one of the most important skills with sports betting, with DFS, with poker, you name it. I mean, bankroll management is so key. So obviously you never want to tie up a significant portion in futures, but I think like anything, it's a good bet. You can add it into your portfolio. It's something you can sweat for a long time if you just want to have fun with it, or if you're more serious, you find these edges and you go with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, I wouldn't recommend taking a bunch of them. That seems counterintuitive, but a couple future bets and a couple team totals, I certainly more often than not find a couple that I'm willing to lock up for a while.
Yeah, I think we're in the same boat. So I'll give you my first total that I'm going over, and that's over 7.5 for the Carolina Panthers. A lot of it, without question, is hinging on Cam and his health and his shoulder. But if I can get a healthy season out of Cam, I think we got a really good chance to cash this over 7.5. They already had a really good defense with Kuechly, Quan Short, Shaq Thompson. They added Brian Burns in the draft. They signed Gerald McCoy. I think their defense is going to be, I think it's already probably a top 10 defense. I really like their front seven. And I think just Gerald McCoy getting thrown in and Burns, I think there's a really good chance that they have a really great defense. Obviously, on the other side of the ball, like I said, it's Cam Newton. We got to keep him on the field. Otherwise, this bet is no hope. But we have McCaffrey, obviously a huge weapon. I'm really excited about Samuel and DJ Moore. I think the two of them are a great receiving combo, kind of under the radar that a lot of people, in fantasy, like they know them and they're young and they have potential, but a lot of people aren't really banking on the two of them to be significant threats. So I think with those two, with McCaffrey, I just really like the nucleus of this team. And Riverboat Ron is always a guy that I've liked as a coach. He's going to make some questionable decisions sometimes, but he goes for it when a lot of coaches just play too conservative, and I think that gives us a small advantage too. So that's a team. It's a division. Obviously, it's a tough division, and that's the kind of the counterpoint here. But this over is shaded. It's minus 160 where I'm looking. We didn't talk much about that yet, and that these bets often do get shaded and juiced pretty heavily. And it's not always indicative of, the right side, let's say, but it is certainly indicative of how the books look at the value of each side and kind of where they want action to go. But I don't love laying a ton of juice, but I'm pretty confident. So minus 160, I'm okay laying that juice.
It's an interesting team. We're going to talk about the NFC South for a couple of these teams in general, but the Panthers in particular, 6-2 to start the season last year. They looked to be a serious contender, and then they lost 7 straight. Part of that was obviously Cam. He's already talked about he couldn't throw the ball, and you already mentioned this. If he goes down or he's not what we think he is, they're done. But that's a risk you're certainly willing to take.
Yeah.
You mentioned DJ Moore, Samuel, definitely weapons. We'll see what Olsen can give them back. Ian Thomas, he's a young tight end. Look actually pretty promising. I know he's been banged up as well, but it's an underrated, I think, cast of weapons around Cam. Obviously, Funchess, that's probably a good riddance at this point. They've got some young electric guys, so I have no problem. I think you hit on it. Even if they can go 3-3 in the South, that's not a problem. With the Saints, Falcons, obviously you got to get a couple against the Bucks maybe, but
yeah,
it's not the worst thing to just hold your own in that division and let your out of conference, out of division schedule carry you.
Yeah, we're going to talk, I think, more about this division, but yeah, certainly Tampa is the weak link. I'm actually kind of bullish just on that offense. I don't think Tampa's going to win a ton of games, but I think they're going to be pretty electric offense. Atlanta and the Saints, obviously, you have good teams in the division and tough home stadiums to play in. If you told me right now they win 3-3, I would be pretty happy.
I think you take that. No doubt about it. So I'm going to kind of continue on that, and I'm going to go to the other side quickly.
Okay.
The Saints, who are a team that I know a lot of people have on their short list, and I get it. There's nothing wrong with thinking that they're going to break through and get back to the Super Bowl. But I'm going under 10.5 wins for them. And number one reason is this division. You've got, I think, certainly 4 competitive games, and then you get 2 against the Bucks. New Orleans is a team, we know how deadly they are inside the dome. But at the same time, there's a lot of pressure on Kamara and Michael Thomas. I think losing Mark Ingram is going to be bigger than people make it out to be. I know they added Latavius Murray. I'm not sure that that's a seamless plug and play. And if Kamara has to take on too much, I could see him wearing down and having a ripple effect for that offense.
Yeah, so spoiler, they were one of my 2 teams that I picked
overlap
to go under as well.
Okay.
So I'm going to add in another one, but I agree with you. A lot of it is the division. There's other factors. Breeze, if you look at his second half of the season, actually struggled pretty mightily. His numbers were not great. Even Michael Thomas's numbers the second half of the season, there was a sharp dip, and the offense likes to run the ball. That's something that people don't necessarily realize, just how run heavy the Saints want to be, even though you just think that they're an electric offense. And that's kind of where the Mark Ingram issue, I think, will arise, because Kamara is not a workhorse back, obviously. I like Latavius Murray, but for sure question marks there and how that's going to fit. I did have a note. If you look at the first 4 games of the season, they play the Texans, obviously winnable, but could be a tough game. Then they go on the road to the Rams and the Seahawks, and then they get the Cowboys at home. If they're 1-3 or even 2-2 there, it's a tough stretch to start the season if they're not quite in sync. And you need them to get to 11 wins. So if they end up 1-3 or 2-2, you got to feel pretty good betting the under.
Absolutely. And there's a lot of ways, this is a situation, and it's obviously not seamless, but if you look, it is shaded, another line that's shaded. If you don't want to pay that juice and you really like this under, I would look to maybe taking a stab at the Panthers or the Falcons to win the South. Obviously, you're getting more odds, and there's certainly more risk where the Saints could go under and you could still lose that bet. But the payoff is pretty nice if you don't think that the Saints win that division. And I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that they do.
Yeah, that's a good point. If you want more, payoff, if you want to get on a plus wager and you really want to fade the Saints, then bet one of the other teams to win the division, because you'll get plus money as opposed to laying, the under on the Saints or betting one of the other team totals. That's a great way to just get value on a different type of betting market.
Absolutely. And obviously the same concept. You're really, in a way, shorting the Saints, but you need to have a better line on either the Panthers or the Falcons. I don't see the Bucks taking down the South this year.
Yeah.
We'll see. Last thing I'll say about the Saints, and I get it, but I feel like that call masked a lot of things that, the Rams also went into the Super Bowl and they were toe to toe with them. It's not, that call certainly, you could very easily argue, cost the Saints the game, but there's no doubt that in the second half they weren't invincible even in the dome, and that could carry over. I definitely don't see them running away with this division.
Yeah, it really makes you wonder. That's a great transition. So the team, well, actually, the team that I'm going to kind of add in as my new pick for the under is one that you just mentioned, is the Rams,
Okay.
which might be a controversial under. I believe also shaded to the under. Let me just look at that real quick. Let's see. Where is their under? Here's the West. Yeah, shaded. Actually, it's minus 150. So it's the same line with 10.5 games. It's another team that I just think some regression is bound to happen. They had such a great season, and so many things went right with health, with performance, with Goff's ascension. There's a lot here that they need to overcome, I think, to get back to 11 wins. Cooper Kupp, obviously, tore his ACL, should be fine, but I want to see it, and that's something that they need to have all those weapons healthy, because the big one obviously is Todd Gurley, and what's his situation? People are saying he has an arthritic knee. They drafted Devery Henderson, who I like a lot, but he's not Todd Gurley, and if Gurley's missing time or if his load is reduced, 11 wins seems pretty tough in that division. I like the Niners a lot more than I did last year. Obviously, Jimmy G's back and healthy, and Seattle is a team I think we're going to talk about, but they're always going to be solid. What do you think about the Rams?
Yeah, I think the Rams, obviously, one of the big things is how strong. That's a division that's up in the air to me. The Cardinals are a mystery. The Niners, a lot of people, including me, I think, the expectations are pretty high for a team. They talk about injuries really derailed everything, but this is their first real crack with Jimmy G. They need to really push the Rams. I'm not super sold on the Seahawks, but at the same time, I think we all know the Seahawks are the kind of team, they're always competitive, especially at home. If you told me they split with the Rams this season, I wouldn't even be remotely shocked. So, yeah, there's some question marks even with them. Obviously, it'll be interesting to see if Sean McVay can stay ahead of the curve. We see that sometimes in all sports where a guy comes, does some things different, and it seems like he's figured it out. And then the league adjusts, the league catches up. Obviously with what he did with Goff, putting him in situations, whether it's talking into the helmet or just play calling in general.
Yeah.
I have a feeling that Goff is going to have to shoulder more. I'm definitely more of a Goff guy than you are. I know you're not the biggest Jared Goff fan, but there's no doubt, especially if Gurley is ineffective, Goff is going to have to shoulder more of that offensive load if they want to hit 11 wins.
Yeah, by the way, week 1 is Rams at Carolina. Talk about hitting both of my plays right there.
Wow, yeah. That's a tough game, though, for the Rams, honestly.
Sure.
It's going to come down to those. That's one, I always look, when you're talking about over-unders, first thing I always do is look at the division, because that's 6 games out of the schedule.
Yeah.
And, Arizona, we'll see with them. But you're going to need the Niners and the Seahawks both to certainly be a competitive foe for them. That's 4 games. And I think that's a reasonable ask, especially with the Niners. They're building certainly something to be pretty excited about in San Francisco.
Yeah, that's a big part of my position too, is assessing that division. There's no question. I'm bullish on the Niners. I think Arizona obviously is going to be significantly better. I don't know how that's going to translate to wins. I was looking at their total, and it seems to be pretty good. It's at 5. Like, I just don't know. It's such an unknown, like, with what that offense is going to be. I think the defense is going to be pretty bad, but with Kyler, and just who knows what.
Yeah, they are
going to look like.
They got to fix that line. Josh Rosen caught a raw deal, so we'll see what Kyler can do. But I'm going to stay in the division just a little bit. And man, I tried this last year to middling at best success. I'm shorting the Seahawks again. I really think that, I know Pete Carroll, I thought he did a great job last year. Obviously, they locked up Russell Wilson, but Baldwin is gone, and they're sitting at 8.5. So Vegas kind of saying that they're going to be fighting for that wild card. I think they're not. I could see them hitting 500 or even being a game or two below 500. they're filling in, I think, some patchwork on that defense. They're getting younger. They've lost
Yeah.
a lot of veterans. Obviously, Frank Clark, D Ford, guys have departed. I know they have Wagner in the middle, and he's certainly going to help. There's no doubt. But at the same time, I think unless Carson in this running game can really dictate, and I know they led the league in rushing, I'm pretty skeptical. And Wilson takes so many sacks. He needs to stay healthy, obviously. With a competitive division with the Niners, I know we keep talking about them. I think that the Seahawks may actually come in third in that division.
I like it too. I think it's the first pick that's actually shaded to the plus side that we've said, which is interesting. Like how much momentum really is on over Seattle right now. I don't know how much there is. I don't think there is much, but it is interesting that the under is where I'm looking at is plus 115. But I agree with you. I mean, so much of it, like we're saying, goes into the division they're in, and we just kind of talked about how we really like the division, even though I'm shorting the Rams. Obviously, they're a very good team, and like could easily win 10 games, and like that's a pretty reasonable outcome, and I'd be happy with my winning my under. But it's going to be hard for Seattle. The division is good. They're going to have to, I think, just pound the ball again with Carson and Penny, and I don't know if they can really duplicate what they did last year. Like you said, they lost so many veterans. Like that's got to take its toll on the team. You got some younger guys who are good, but it's just so much harder to get everybody on the same page when you're bringing in all these new faces. Just looking at their schedule a little bit, like they go at Pittsburgh week 2, they play the Saints week 3. Just looking at some of their non-division games, they got Atlanta. They get Eagles, some Vikings, tough games in there.
Yeah, they get the NFC South, which we talked about. I think is one of the strongest divisions. That doesn't help their cause, and yeah, they have. I will say we know how good the home field advantage. Great special teams; those things really can make a difference. But at the end of the day, I just think they fall kind of short on both sides of the ball. I think Baldwin's absence is going to be, felt. Lockett's great. But at the same time, after him, there's a pretty big drop off. And then on the defense, certainly the Legion of Boom obviously is all gone.
Yeah.
And it's just not the same team that we once saw.
Yeah. And we've talked about this before, how with a lot of futures, like once the season starts, like these futures don't disappear. Like a lot of times you can still bet win totals. Maybe you don't get the same prices as you would, but like a lot of times earlier in the season, you can still wager. Some books will take these down, but just thinking week 1, Seattle plays Cincinnati at home, I could see them really rolling that game. And if you could still find a line to fade Seattle, that would be probably a good time to do it, because I think they're going to really beat up on the Bengals week 1.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. If most I don't want to say most books, a lot of books pull them.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you can get that, and there's other ways, again, to short a team. Where if you're looking at division stuff and make the playoffs, some people offer that. Obviously, I don't think Seattle's making the playoffs this year. If they're 8-8, that's not going to be happening. Anybody else for you in the over?
Yeah. So my second fade for me is we're going back to the AFC West, and that's under 6.5 for the Raiders. Obviously, they're getting the Hard Knocks buzz, and that line actually moved. It opened at 6 and went up to 6.5, which is, I was kind of surprised when I saw that, and I was trying to look to see if that was kind of across the board, and it seems like some books had it at 6.5. But we're definitely shaded to the under. I wanted to see what the updated price is on the Raiders. Oh yeah, it's minus 195. Yeah. So it's a pretty steep one, and that kind of shows you where the market is betting this. But man, I'm not a believer in Gruden. I'm not a believer in Derek Carr. I don't think Antonio Brown is going to mask all these issues with their offense. I don't think their defense is good at all. I think it's actually pretty poor, and probably going to be, I would guess, one of the worst in the league. They also have a tough schedule. We talked about the division. They play the Chiefs, the Vikings, the Bears, the Colts. They also get Green Bay and Houston, not to mention their division game, their conference games and division games. Man, I'm just a big non-believer in this team. And usually there's a little bit of a buzz with Hard Knocks where people get really like the team and want to bet on them or like take the guys in fantasy. I'm hoping that just continues. I mean, I don't think this number is going to go up, but I'm happy to fade the Raiders this year.
Yeah, you mentioned the divisions again, the North with the Packers, Bears. Those teams are brutal, and it's just a team that just screams dysfunction. I wouldn't be stunned to see them have the number one pick when all is said and done. I'm not a Carr guy either. The Broncos, I don't think they're going to be great, but man, the Raiders are going to need those games because obviously,
Yeah.
as we talked about, the Chiefs and the Chargers are in an arms race. The last thing you want to do, and we saw this last year, you don't want to be giving a game away against the Raiders. A couple teams late in the season did that. I think Pittsburgh did, I want to say. And it was very costly. So
Yeah.
that's going to be an AB if he ever gets back from his frostbite. I think he could cause as many problems. I know he's great on the field, but he's used to at least being competitive. If the Raiders start, 1-4 or something like that, which is clearly possible, we'll see how long he keeps chugging along and not complaining with Carr possibly being ineffective.
Yeah, and the whole Antonio Brown, I mean, he's playing it off like this is not a big deal, but I don't know if you've seen the photos of his feet.
It's not good. Like,
it can't be good, right? Like, I don't know. Maybe he'll be fine by week 1, but even if he's healthy, I don't think it's going to sway it for me. I'm definitely shorting the team.
No, and I will say that, and it's totally different. Josh Jacobs is a guy that I am really high on. A lot of people are, but at the same time, the expectations, we're talking about Darrell Henderson. He'll be a nice complement to the other 10 weapons they have. For the Raiders, Jacobs is looking to be one of the focal points of the offense immediately. That's a big ask. I know running back, there's not a huge learning curve, but at the same time, it's not like he gets a ton of wait and see, and that's a lot of pressure.
Yeah, just look at Saquon last year, and they still had Odell, and that team obviously didn't win any games, and Saquon had an incredible season, and I think I like Josh Jacobs too, and I think he could have a really great season, but I agree with you. I don't think that is going to translate to wins.
No. It's ugly out in Oakland. It'll be so in a situation like that, if you're shopping, if you really don't like them, would you rather lay, certainly around -110 with 6, or would you rather have the 6 as a win and shade it with the juice?
It's a good question. I'd have to dig in the schedule a little more. I'm pretty confident that I probably would go down to 6 and be okay with it. If you can get me like even money versus laying, 2-1 basically.
Yeah.
I'm pretty confident in kind of that fade. I think generally I don't like going down like a half a game here because obviously each game is so valuable when there's only 16. And maybe that doesn't quite correlate with that price break that I'm getting, but this would be a team where I would consider it. If you told me they had the number 1 pick or 2 pick next year, I would not be surprised at all.
No, me neither. It's just a team that there's just a lot of dysfunction. A lot of things have to go right. And Gruden, the hype around them, certainly there's a lot of public money. I think I remember a couple years ago with the Raiders, they were one of the sexiest teams for big futures, and they were just absolutely certainly hasn't materialized where people thought they might go.
Yeah, I think I was probably on that bandwagon a few years ago.
I think I got sucked in.
Like, one good season, Amari Cooper is going to light it up. They had some talent, but obviously that didn't come to fruition.
Yeah. Anybody else for you? I have one more team I want to talk about.
You have one more over?
I do. And we talked about them. I won't spend too much time. It's just banking again. You like the Panthers. To me, the team is the Falcons. And I talked about this a little. First thing that stood out, they don't go outside until week 11. And that's just absurd. They're either in their dome or another dome. And for that offense with Matt Ryan, who, and I'll be writing, stay tuned for some MVP futures. I think he makes a very reasonable candidate to get in that mix this year. He's got obviously everyone back with Julio. They've got weapons, Freeman if he's healthy. And that defense, Deion Jones went down. I talked about that each and every week in DFS. That really derailed what they wanted to do. Guys like McCaffrey tore them apart when they didn't have that linebacker. So I think that the Falcons are the real challenge. I don't mind the Panthers at all, but I think the Falcons can really give the Saints some problems this year. I expect them to certainly be in line for the playoffs. And when you look at their over 9 wins, around plus 125, plus 130, where I'm looking, I'm willing to take that at plus money.
Yeah, we've talked so much about this division, and there's so much correlation when you're looking at obviously win totals in a division. And we both want to fade the Saints. We both think Tampa, like, yeah, they're going to be okay, but we don't think they're going to be more than like a 5-6 win team. So you just kind of do the math, and we like Carolina. So how many wins are left for Atlanta out of the division? And I think there is a path for sure for them to get over. Like you said, the schedule is favorable, and that they don't have to play in any bad weather or non-dome for what is it, 11 weeks. I mean, that's insane. And Matt Ryan is somebody who's just so under the radar as basically an elite quarterback. If you look 2 out of the last 3 years, he finished in the top 5 of like all passing stats. He had the down year kind of in between, but they're getting back. Obviously Julio's healthy. Devonta Freeman, if he can stay healthy, he was hurt last year. If he can come back healthy, they have the weapons. There's no doubt, and I like their defense too. Underrated. So it's one that, yeah, I wish I could disagree a little more, but no, I think I'm on board with you.
Yeah, for me, just the last thing I'll say about the division, the Falcons, I'm not going to say they're low variance, but I think they're going to be competitive. I would actually be more apt to use the Panthers in more aggressive bets, because if Cam is hurt or not effective, they might win 4 games. And if he is, they're a threat, I think, to do real damage. So I'm more willing to bank on the upside. Where someone like the Falcons, I really think they're falling, between 8 and 10 wins. I obviously think it's going to be on the high side, but I don't see a ton of boom bust. So I'm more apt to take them in a team total rather than saying I think they come out of the NFC or something like that.
Yeah, I think their range of outcomes is a lot narrower than Carolina, because I agree. Carolina, they could win the NFC. Like I could easily see that happening. I mean, they did. Was that 3 years ago? They won it, and
Broncos.
I mean, it's clearly within the realm of possibility. With Atlanta, yeah, like their floor is pretty high, but I don't think they have that same ceiling. But we're just looking at a team total here, and we just need them to get over 9. I think that's certainly reasonable.
Put it on the board. Yeah, Falcons. Let's do it. Dirty Birds.
Cash and tickets all day today.
I hope. Yeah, that's the plan. It's always easy in your mind. But we'll see. Obviously, injuries, things will dictate. You want everyone to stay healthy in this preseason.
For sure.
But they're smart. Julio, that's what they should do. Julio, he don't need to play. He said that. I don't need to play in the preseason. Smart man. Just get ready.
Don't play.
Don't play. Nope.
All right, my last over pick. You're gonna really love this one.
Jets.
Wow, you read my mind. Jets over 7.
Yeah, because you're a smart guy. That's right.
Well, there you go. Speaking of guys who should just not play, is Le'Veon. He usually doesn't play in the preseason, so just stay on the sidelines. So let me tell you about the Jets. You obviously know, you're a huge Jets fan. So Darnold, if you look at the stats from weeks 14 to 17 last year, now you could say they were out of it. It's not relevant. Week 17, is completely irrelevant. But he was a rookie quarterback. There's obviously a development and a learning curve. Mm-hmm. He was also injured for a lot of the season, and this is when he came back from his foot injury. He was the highest rated quarterback from PFF stat perspective. Higher than Mahomes, higher than anybody else. Sam Darnold, number 1. 931 yards, 6 touchdowns, only 1 pick during that time frame. I think their offense is so underrated, and I don't think anybody, maybe outside of you, Ben, is talking about that. I also really like Robbie Anderson. I think the two of them have chemistry. His stats over that same time frame were also really excellent. I think he was the 4th highest rated receiver during that time frame on PFF. I think that combo alone has potential. The defense is improving. They signed Mosley. They have some other great guys there. Adam Gase, I don't love him as a coach, but I think he does a good job with what he has. When he was at Miami, he got them in the playoffs that first year, even though that Miami team was pretty poor. I don't know if the Jets are going to make the playoffs, but we just need to get over 7 here. Obviously, the division is such a key part of this, as we've been talking about, and I think Miami is a dumpster fire. The Bills, I don't know. They won 6 games last year. I think they're probably going to be a similar team. So the Jets got to win one, if not both of those games. And the Patriots, obviously, is the class of the division. Could they steal one? Of course. But I just really like them over 7.
You don't have to sell me. I mean, it's interesting. There's a lot of divisions like this. The Bills and the Jets, to me, are very similar in a lot of ways, obviously. The Dolphins, we can just get them out of here immediately. But we'll see with Josh Allen and with Darnold. But I will say one thing that I'm not going to say this changes at all, but Herndon being suspended for that start is not ideal. He's a weapon that I really think Darnold's going to lean on. He was showing major promise late in the year. And that really hurts. But, with Crowder, with Anderson, obviously Le'Veon, they've got weapons and they should be competitive. You talked about the division. There's no reason they can't win 4 in that division, as a lofty goal. But Jets are building something. Obviously, Darnold's going to have some bad games in there, but the talent, he's a young guy. I have no problem with that. I think they could hover around 500. Don't think they find the postseason, but good things. There's some promise around these parts with the Jets for a change.
Yeah, I imagine it's been a while since there's been any real kind of hope, but it's I agree. I think they come out of the gates against the Bills at home, right? Obviously winnable. Then they play Cleveland, which is a team that we talked about last week, how we both were kind of fading just the insane hype around Cleveland. So man, if they can somehow win that game against Cleveland, then they're positioned really well, kind of going into they play the Pats and then, some other tough teams. But if they can get that game against Cleveland, I think they're in good shape. Let's get through the suspension. Like you said, yeah, that's not ideal. I think that does hurt, obviously, and he is a weapon that Darnold's going to lean on. But I like Crowder. Obviously, I like Robbie Anderson. Le'Veon, he's fresh. I guess you can give him that. We'll see what he has left in the tank. He hasn't played in a year. Let's see how he does.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think – but even if they get, not a fraction, but he's going to be more than – I think the floor is that he'll be fine. With running back, they have some other guys. Elijah McGuire is a guy that I've always been a fan of in life. But Le'Veon, he should do his part. It's really about can Darnold progress and can Gase – yeah, I'm not the biggest Adam Gase guy either, but he did do a pretty good job with a bad Miami team.
Yeah, and him coming obviously from the Bears, there was always kind of mixed reaction from him, whether he was doing a great job or not. But Le'Veon, his floor, obviously barring injury, and you can never predict that, but his floor is pretty safe, and they're going to have. I mean, the Patriots, they have a ton of question marks. Does it matter ever? Their defense is going to be really great, but that offense, they lost Gronk. Obviously, the receiver core is thin.
Yeah,
I don't know. And I'm loving this over 7.
Yeah, that's not the problem either. Those games I think are free rolls because you can get there without them. And the Jets, they're always up for those games. They've played the Patriots when they've been outmatched. They've played the Patriots tough. It's going to be you got to get 2 against Miami, and then we'll see about the Bills. But there's some promise if that defense develops. Get Herndon back and integrate him as fast as possible.
Yeah, so I think sounds like we're on the same page with the Jets. I mean, I figured you would be excited about that pick.
Got to do it with the Jets. We still have some time. Obviously, we're going to continue to monitor. With college coming up, I'm going to be looking at those for any last minute couple. Maybe we'll sneak them into the show next week because
for sure.
With college, there's hundreds of teams, 120 teams, so a lot of options.
Yeah. Well, let's dig into that next week. Obviously, if any significant injuries happen, these futures are tough in that you're locking it in pretty early. So for a lot of them, I would probably wait a few weeks if there's any concern, because there's really no harm. These prices already, the market's already been set the way that it's going to be. There'll be some movement still, but a lot of this is already bet into, and you're going to see the big juice on certain positions, and you just kind of have to live with it at this point.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think a lot of the radical shifts to time that really jump was, earlier in the summer, but you can still glean some value here and there at this point.
I think so too. I think we got some great money making plays here. What do you think?
Yeah, yeah, no, it's good stuff. In the meantime, gonna sweat some tennis, sweat some golf. Obviously, if you're in our Slack chat, I'll be around. We'll be talking this cut line, see what we can muster up in the meantime before football starts.
Sounds good. Good weekend. A lot to look forward to. We got a few more preseason games to check out. Obviously, golf, tennis. Ton happening next week. We'll dig into some college football features a little more. Probably talk more NFL and go from there.
Sounds like a plan. We'll get on out of here. See you guys next week. Good luck, everyone, and stop on by the site if you have any questions.
Good luck, everybody.